Total Screen proudly presents the Weekly Set Podcast with Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Episode 222, recorded September 14th, 2019. Hello everybody and welcome to the Weekly Set, the official podcast of the Total Screen. I am your host, my name is Tyson, and joining me today as always is my partner in crime here at the Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today, we are going to be talking about our top 10 serial killer shows. So this is a bit of a loose list. It was actually kind of a little bit harder to put together than we had originally anticipated. We're like, oh yeah, there's tons of shows we watch about serial killers. And then as we start putting it together, we're like, oh, wait a minute.
Nope.
So some things we had to fudge in a little bit to kind of get them in there because they kind of loosely about serial killers, or there's a major plot line about a serial killer or something like that we meant to fit it in because of that. So some of them don't necessarily fit the regular mold of what you'd think of for like a serial killer show, but some of them really are. So the reason why we're doing this top 10 list though is that last week we discussed Mindhunter Season 1, which is largely about serial killers, and next week we're doing Mindhunter Season 2. So we're having like a little bit of a Mindhunter sandwich with this top 10 list in the middle. And so we're going to count down kind of our top 10 picks for serial killer TV shows, and I'm going to start things off with number 10, Luther. Now, Luther is a British series. It's a detective series. It stars Idris Elba as John Luther. And yeah, he's just like a really smart, kind of edgy, on the dark side kind of detective. And like a lot of the shows on here and a lot of the just kind of better shows in general that are about, serial killers or have references to that, you have kind of this twisted relationship between a killer and the detective that's hunting them kind of thing. Except that Luther, for the most part, is procedural. It's like episode is week to week, but the case that kind of kicks off the first episode, it's not the first scene of the first episode, but the kind of really the mystery of the first episode introduces a character that's a psychopath that murdered her parents. And it goes into kind of this relationship that she ends up kind of developing with Luther not being able to prove that she's guilty. And, because she's too smart and was able to cover up her crime too well. But he knows that she's it. But they're still kind of have this weird relationship between them. And, so that's Luther. There's a few kind of interesting procedural episodes with serial killers in it. There's like some spree killer episodes, some serial killer episodes, some other ones. It's a pretty good British series with
how many seasons is it?
I think they're at like 4 or 5. It's weird because they did the first 2 seasons and it was like regular TV. And then Idris Elba kind of blew up as an actor.
Yeah. Yeah, he got big.
Yeah, and so they couldn't just do like a yearly show anymore. So now it's just kind of, they'll just do a season whenever he's available pretty much. Like, Idris Elba's available, so they'll do another season of Luther.
Sounds about right.
He likes doing the show, so they do it in that way. So it kind of has that like Curb Your Enthusiasm thing going on, where like HBO's not like, they're like, yeah, we don't have like, oh, next season of Curb, is coming up or something. It's just kind of like, if Larry David's available and has something he wants to talk about, then they do another season of Curb,
Right.
So it's kind of like that, except instead of the writer, creator, everything, it's just the main star, with Idris Elba.
Cool. Okay, so next up we have at number 9 we have Scream Queens, and this is definitely about serial killers, but this is like a comedy, like kind of a parody of slasher films. So you got the setup where this is like a college sorority. There's like all the typical archetypes. There's like the bitchy girl played by Emma
Roberts.
Emma Roberts, yeah.
It's Julia Roberts' niece.
Yeah, Julia Roberts' niece. She's one of the main stars. Then there's like the goody two-shoes girl, and all the teen stereotypes. And
the cliques, yeah, the different.
Yeah, the different cliques, and they're being stalked down by the serial killer who's dressing up as like the school mascot, which is like a red devil. And Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and she's like the dean of the college, and she is amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of tongue-in-cheek references to not just Halloween, which she was in, but also to Psycho, which her mom was in. Yeah,
which her mom was in. There's a lot of nice tongue-in-cheek references, and Let me tell you, she's awesome in this, by the way. Like, her character is, like, the best character in the show, in my opinion.
Her and Emma Roberts.
Yeah, her and Emma
And I
Emma
don't know the
Roberts
actor's
does a
name,
great
but
job.
Chad.
Yeah, Chad. Yeah, Chad was hilarious. Yeah, Emma Roberts' like character was like another standout too. And at times it could be funny, it could be scary. They really did an excellent job with the first season. There's like a second season. I didn't think season 2 was as good as the first season, but I thought the first season was like really surprising at like just being like this quality like slasher parody, like in the vein of Scream. Only like this even like went harder in the parody direction. Like Scream was like kind of like winking at the audience, but this is like more like
winking with that really over-exaggerated.
Yeah, I was like, this is more like an Airplane version of a slasher film. Yeah.
So this is it's a Ryan Murphy show, and it kind of fits into the structure of Ryan Murphy shows like Glee and like, American Horror Story and stuff, in that it starts off really strong and progressively gets weaker throughout the seasons. There's only 2 seasons of this, though.
Also like, constant random digs at Taylor Swift throughout the entire.
Yeah, there's like a lot of pop culture stuff, and I think we both liked one of the best episodes was the one where they had like Emma Roberts' character has all these fans.
Yes.
And so for like Halloween, she plays like pranks on them and they love it, and she's just being like really cruel.
That's what I was talking about, because that was a direct parody of Taylor Swift and something like Taylor Swift, like filmed herself sending Christmas gifts to like her fans, and they were like, that was like mocking that almost verbatim, with like Emma Roberts doing it for Halloween, and instead of like nice gifts for her fans, or like these cruel like tricks that they still love her for it. Though, they're like, oh my god, it's a foot.
Yeah, it's a really funny series. The first season's very good. The second season, it's still good. It's just not as good as the first season.
Right.
And it was, sadly canceled, but maybe it was for the best that it was canceled, because, like I said, it's a Ryan Murphy show, which meant that, if it had made it to maybe, say, season 4, it probably would have just become a mess. Just a complete mess that was unwatchable. Because, that's kind of what happened with, like, American Horror Story and other kind of, shows that he's done, is that they start strong, and then they kind of have burnt out all their ideas, and then by the time they get into the later seasons, it's just garbage.
Which, as an aside, it's not on the list, but the current season of American Horror Story is doing that whole, like, 1980s slasher movie thing.
Yeah, it looks like it's a cool idea and stuff, and then I remember, like, how every new season of American Horror Story ggets me a little excited with its premise, and then I watch it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, it's not there anymore. It's only like the first 3 that were good. But yeah, it's Scream Queens is just, it's really funny. It's got great characters. It's got ridiculous stuff. I think we put when we used to do it at TV Enthusiasts, we used to do like our end of the year thing, and we put like the funniest scene. I think I both ended up, picking, the chainsaw scene.
Yes.
From, which is just, if you've seen Scream Queens, you know what that is. If you haven't, then you don't, but it was hilarious. Backstreet's back.
Backstreet's back. That was amazing. Yes.
Yeah, so it's a really good show, and it's there's a serial killer, and it's very Scream-esque in that way, but it's a slasher, you could say. But yeah, that's a good one. It's a little weird diversion from our more serious shows on the list, but we wanted to include it just because it's really good. At number 8, we have The Fall. So, I haven't seen beyond season 1 of The Fall. It's one of those shows I've been meaning to watch more of and just haven't had time. But it's a really interesting show. And the most interesting aspect about the show is that it takes place in Ireland. And the backdrop of the show is kind of like the tensions that are brewing after kind of the Troubles. So the Troubles, for anybody who doesn't know, is like the issues between Protestants and Catholics and the terrorism and stuff that happened in Northern Ireland. And The Fall kind of has it's modern set, so like that stuff's kind of a bit in the past, but there's still a lot of tension. Just because like it's over in the past, there's still so much tension between these different groups, you know? There's still acts of violence between these groups too. And with that in the background, there's a character in The Fall who's a serial killer, and he's a family man. He's got, you know, a wife and children, but he's murdering women. Mm-hmm. He's going around as a serial killer murdering professional women, and very quickly his identity is kind of figured out by Gillian Anderson's character. Yes, Gillian Anderson is in the show. She plays like a detective. She plays a British detective that's like visiting Ireland to help with this case, basically. And she very quickly figures out who the killer is, and then it becomes, instead of like a whodunit or something, we know who the killer is. She figures out pretty quickly who the killer is, and it becomes more about like his motivations and what like led him in that direction. So it's just a really interesting show, like I said, largely because of the backdrop of Ireland and the Troubles and all that stuff in the background of the series.
That sounds interesting. It sounds like, for the setting, more so than anything, it sounds pretty interesting how that's set up. I like Gillian Anderson. That might be something I check out at some time.
Yeah, it's on Netflix, so it's I think it's in the UK and in Ireland it's on like channel, but in the US it's a Netflix original. It's one of those. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of shows like that, but that's one of them.
So next up we have Criminal Minds, this is at number 7. This is like kinda the original Mindhunter, because this focuses on the FBI agents working in the Bureau of Behavioral Sciences using the methodology that they talk a lot about in Mindhunter to chase and capture serial killers. That's what the entire show is about. Except this is like a network procedural, so it's like the case of the week type stuff. Mm-hmm. Like this show is basically the serial killer of the week, and it focuses on that. But it does also focus a good deal on the interpersonal relationships of the agents, like working in the bureau as well. Like it still has its tropes though. It's still so tropey, because you have like the leader is like,
well, it's a CBS show.
Yeah. Yeah,
you have to have the kind of quirky hacker.
Yeah, you have the quirky
It's always
hacker.
a girl in the CBS shows.
Yeah, it's always a girl so you have like you have the nerdy computer hacker. You have like the quirky, like misunderstood genius, right? Mm-hmm. You have that character. You have like the head of the unit who is like just a straight-laced career FBI guy. And then you have like the tough guy, you know, and then like you have like the smart, you know, take no shit female agent. Like stuff like that.
Yeah, so you're gonna have like the female, like you said, the tough, like take no shit female agent, and then the head of the unit that kind of together act as almost like parental figures for the team.
Yes.
So yeah, it's very, very tropey, but I have to say, and this isn't the case for the whole series, because the series has been on for many years now.
Yeah, the series has like 100 seasons or something ridiculous, yeah. So.
And it's declined pretty heavily in the later seasons, but, I mean, there's only so much you can do with the premise and keep it really fresh, you know?
Yeah.
But the first couple of seasons and stuff, there's some really good serial killer stories in there.
There's some really good, and also, like I said, like the characters are like tropey, but they're actually like pretty well acted, and they're actually pretty well fleshed out. You actually do get to care about these characters, you know, like
they're likable.
They're likable. It's not like they're horribly written or anything. It's just they're obvious tropes, like the way they're presented. But
yeah, I found them much more likable than say like the characters in CSI or something.
Right, exactly.
And the premise is a lot stronger too, so it's...
Yeah, the premise is a lot stronger, and there are some, like you said, yeah, there are some good episodes with some intriguing, like, serial killer stories. Like, it's actually, at least, I would say at least early on, it's actually not a terrible show. It's actually very watchable, if you know.
Oh yeah. It surprised me. It's something that when it first came on, I kind of was like, oh, another procedural CBS garbage show. I'm not going to watch this. And then one time I caught an episode, and it wasn't even about a serial killer, I think. It was an episode where there was like a guy who was in witness protection or something. And he was like an mobster or something. And, or like an enforcer for the mob. And his daughter was like kidnapped. And then the way the episode ended, like, they set it up this whole thing where, like, one of the agents was trying to kind of talk him down from killing his daughter's, like, kidnapper. And it's, like, very, like, it felt very cliche, like, oh, you know, okay, so now it's gonna be the part he talks him down and he gives up and then the episode ends and you see that there's some redemption for this guy.
Nope.
No, he just fucking murders the guy.
Yeah. That's another thing, too, like, it's not shy about depicting, like, violence and brutality. It's not like overly like gory it could be gory at times, like not too overly because it's still like a CBS network show, but like it does go there, like sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, some CBS shows are pretty gory. CSI is pretty gory.
Right.
But, it's more, I think, that it gets dark.
Yeah,
more than that gets gory.
Yeah, that's what I mean more. Like, it does get dark. Yeah.
Like, they've had a few cannibals on the show and stuff like that, so it gets dark, you know?
Yeah. Which is nice because, you know, when you're dealing with a show about serial, it should get dark.
Yeah, definitely.
Apparently, I'm looking at the Wikipedia, and there is a Criminal Minds Korea, like a South Korean version of Criminal Minds.
I know the series has like a spin-off show too that I think didn't last that long.
They made two. They made like Suspect Behavior, and then they made Beyond Borders. I didn't really watch either of those, so
I think I'd already kind of stopped watching by that point.
Like Suspect Behavior was only like one 13-episode season, according to Wikipedia, and the second spin-off Beyond Borders lasted 2 seasons before it was canceled.
Yeah, they just couldn't get the magic of the original group and
kind
of the throwing around the terminology and the deep psychology of the killers. Like, there's such like, it's so ingrained into the show that like a spin-off just didn't work the way, you know, and just the premise too, because it's like, they couldn't just say like Criminal Minds Miami or Criminal Minds Chicago like they do because it's literally about a group that travels around the country. Helping on crimes, you know?
They're the FBI, you know, like the FBI.
Yeah.
They have like, the bureau is there's no FBI, like, Miami office, you know, like.
Well, there is, but I mean, they move agents around where they need them, you know?
Right.
They're not stationary. So it's kind of, it doesn't lend itself to spin-offs the way like CSI did, for example, where you can just say, we'll just do the same show, but it's set in, you know, the main show is Las Vegas, this next show will be in New York, you know, but the exact same premise, you know. You can't really do that with Criminal Minds because it's about a group travels to different places.
All over the place, so you don't need like a Criminal Minds Miami.
Yeah. It's like, wait a minute, why are we watching a show about the B team?
Exactly, it didn't work. It just wasn't a thing.
So next up we have at number 6, The End of the Fucking World. This is a show, it's on Netflix. It's one of those, like with, Luther, it's one of those shows that, you know, it'll be like The Fall, actually. Like The Fall, it's one of those shows that is originally, you know, tied to a network in the UK, but in the US it's a Netflix original. And basically the series is about a teenage boy who's kind of like awkward and weird, and he's keeps himself separate from everybody else, and somehow he ends up building up this relationship with this girl who's also kind of awkward and has her own kind of reasons to kind of isolate herself from the rest of the group. But the trick here is that the male character is like a budding serial killer. He is a psychopath, and this girl kind of becomes attached to him because she recognizes, oh, we're both like outsiders. And to him, it's like it would mostly be an annoyance to him, except for the fact that he wants to have his first victim, and basically one just volunteered.
Right.
And so the two of them end up going on the run because she ends up in a bad situation where she needs to leave, and he agrees to go with her. And it's basically the two of them traveling around, and he's just trying to build up the nerve or trying to set the right time in order to murder her. basically, to start his journey as a serial killer. And, yeah, I mean, the whole show is kind of like this coming of age road trip, on the run kind of show, except that one of the people is trying to kill the other one. And it's an interesting show. And, yeah, so that's the end of the fucking world. It's on Netflix.
Sounds pretty interesting.
I still need to watch more of it.
Yeah, I bet. The next one that we have, number 5, is True Detective Season 1. And this was a groundbreaking show when it came out on HBO all those years ago. Like, people, like it was amazing, like Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey just turned in incredible performance. Like, this is like, their film actors are doing like a HBO TV series. It was pretty amazing. And
well, almost completely revitalized Matthew McConaughey's career.
Yeah, it wasn't doing so well at that point. I remember. Yeah, well, because Matthew McConaughey's character became like so memorable. Like he practically became a meme.
There's lots of memes for this show. Like, I particularly enjoyed before season 2 started and ended up disappointing everybody, they had this whole thing about, it was an anthology series where you have these two characters and then two detectives that team up, and people were basically posting random pictures of like two people together, two actors, and then writing True Detective Season 2 and like posting that as like a meme on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen season 2. I can't comment. But season 1 was amazing, and basically the premise is straightforward. It's two detectives in the South in, I want to say, the 90s. It was like in the 90s.
I think it might have stretched further back. I think it might have, because there were like 3 time periods, I think, right? Or 2?
I think there was only 2 in the first season. I think they only did 2.
Season 3 had like 3 time periods, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm thinking back, because I think like the first one was like the actual case was in the past, and then the present was them being interviewed in the present about the case.
Mm-hmm.
By like an internal police investigation. They weren't being interviewed by journalists. They were being interviewed by police, like looking into the case and like their conduct on the case, like after the fact. But I think that was set like in the early in like the Bush senior years. I have to Google it now.
It sounds like it might be right.
Okay, according to Wikipedia, it says it's a nonlinear that focuses on the two detectives who investigate the murder of prostitute Dora Lang in 1995. And then 17 years later, they must revisit the investigation along with several other unsolved crimes. So it was like, 95. So it was during the Clinton administration then.
Yeah. So it's, the first season's really good. This is another one of the ones where we fudged it into place because it's a serial killer list, and it is technically a serial killer investigation that's going on in the story. But what's really dominant in True Detective is kind of like the relationship between these two detectives.
Right.
And particularly Matthew McConaughey's character, Russ Cole, and his nihilism. It's like an exploration of his nihilism.
Yeah. Russ is a nihilist. Woody Harrelson's character is just the straight-laced, detective. He's just like a normal guy, just like doing his job, mm-hmm. and Russ is, he's a nihilist. He's like way the fuck out there.
Yeah. He's had some bad stuff happen to him and he's suffered from that. And it's made him very, very nihilistic. And that's kind of what True Detective really became famous for is Matthew McConaughey's dialogue in the show.
Yes. Cause
he had just like a very poetic way of saying some pretty horrifically nihilistic things.
Yeah. And I love like the interactions with like Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, like with Rust and Marty, because there's so many times that Russ would say something and Marty would be like, would be like, you just fucking be normal. Like, yeah. There's the one scene where like, they're in this like dead shopping center or something like just like empty, closed buildings. And like Russ says something like this looks like somebody's memory of a town and the memory's fading. and then Marty's like, don't say shit like that. It's unprofessional.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of what True Detective season 1's about.
Yes, and it's also it's more about, as the title suggests, it's more about the detectives and their lives and their relationship than it is about the actual case. Like it goes into depth of Marty's life, like Marty's like marriage is falling apart and he's having affairs and shit. And then, we see later on he's divorced and, he's kind of pathetically like going on dating sites trying to find like somebody, his personal life eventually falls apart. It's just really great. It was just really great. It definitely made a splash when it came out. Season 2, from all accounts, avoid that. But I skipped season 2, but I did watch season 3. And season 3
was great as well.
Season 3 was great as well. I would say, if you're going to get into the show, watch season 1 and season 3. Don't worry about season 2.
Yes, definitely. So next up, we have another one that's kind of pushing the limits of our list, as far as like it being a serial killer show list, because it's a show that's not so much like there's a serial killer in it. He's kind of a supernatural serial killer being of some sort. But the show's more just about the town and the characters and stuff. And what I'm talking about here is Twin Peaks, which we're putting here at number 4. And Twin Peaks is a show that was created by David Lynch in the 90s. It came back for a third season just recently, but it's kind of the epitome of cult show. This is like when people talk about a cult show, Twin Peaks is it,
How to describe Twin Peaks? Because you can't really describe it in conventional terms, other than to say it's a bit of a mindfuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in general, it kind of started out as, you have David Lynch, who's a very visual, surrealist director, basically. Yeah. And basically the idea was David Lynch wanted to make a nighttime soap opera.
Yes.
So it's like, if you'd have a nighttime soap opera and you put it through a lens of like absolute chaos. And that's Twin Peaks.
And by the way, this aired on primetime network television in the early 90s, which looking back on it is insane because like you thought like network television was safe. Like nowadays, like back then it was like super safe.
I just read an interview with Damon Lindelof, the showrunner of Lost and Leftovers, and he was talking about how when he and J.J. Abrams were doing a meeting about Lost with an executive at ABC, and they were talking about how they were setting up the story and how it was like serialized and stuff, and the exec at ABC was like, "We don't want another Twin Peaks."
We don't want another.
Yeah, because it's so weird to think that it's such one of the most memorable shows of all time. One of the shows that's like most beloved. But like it was seen as such a failure by the network and stuff. But the thing that was interesting in the interview is like J.J. Abrams kind of cut him off and said that was so long ago. And he said like Twin Peaks is what we should aspire to.
No, good for J.J. for sticking up for it. Like, for telling that executive, like,
because it's the truth. Twin Peaks was way ahead of its time.
Right. It was.
I mean, it's some of the stuff that we're getting just now is like what Twin Peaks was laying the groundworks for in like 90, 91.
Yeah. It blows my mind that was the thing.
And this is pre-X-Files, this is pre-Buffy, pre-Sopranos,
And I'm not surprised it was canceled after the second season, like something like that was not destined to have a long life on network television. Just wasn't, Yeah. So, I guess we should loosely, the plot is loosely like a young woman is murdered in the sleepy, northwestern town of
I think it's like an Oregon town or something.
Yeah, somewhere in the Northwest. It's kind of ambiguous because they never affix a specific state to it, but
Yeah.
But you can tell just because they're in the mountains and shit. So it's this town of Twin Peaks, and it's just like this sleepy, quiet, town where nothing happens except now something major happened. A young woman was murdered. A very popular girl who, by all accounts was the all-American girl next door, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the FBI, sends an agent to investigate it, Kyle MacLachlan, and one of the most iconic roles in television history, Agent
Dale
Cooper.
Cooper.
Yeah, hanging with Mr. Cooper. And that's the basic, and he goes around Twin Peaks trying to investigate this case, and that is the basic premise. And things just, it goes places. Like,
it gets weird.
It gets
like
weird.
Really weird.
Yeah.
And like in every imaginable way. Like it's not like the killing is the weird part and everything else is normal, or that the everything else is weird but the killing is normal. It's like, no, it's all, in every possible way the show is weird. And, from the FBI agent, like, using like his dreams to investigate the crimes, to, a serial killer being like some kind of a supernatural entity
who could apparently like just possess people and continue his killings.
Yes. To just like these weird brothers that are kind of like the rich family of the thing, that just like have this weird interactions with each other where they're like, scarfing down food and smiling at each other, and like in the weirdest way. It's like a guy that like it was in season 3 was like, he's a therapist that started selling shovels so people could dig themselves out of the bullshit.
Well, also can't forget the log lady. The lady
lady just carries a log that
talks to her, that tells her things.
The boy with the creamed corn in his hands. I mean, there's just, it never ends. It's just, the show is so weird. It's so cult. Like I said, when people talk about cult, pretty much anything, people talk about like cult music, cult movies, cult whatever, Twin Peaks is usually like the first words that roll off the tongue.
Yes.
When that kind of discussion starts. This is the epitome of like cult, entertainment of any sort, pretty much. And it's become super iconic. I mean, its obsession with pie and coffee and all these different aspects of it just become so iconic, so referenced.
Yeah, it's referenced all over the place. Like, there's references everywhere. Like, The Simpsons referenced it. Bound, like Earthbound is inspired in some way by Twin Peaks.
Hey, if you have a Nintendo Switch, we talk about Nintendo a lot because we've done Nintendo podcasts too. There's a game that just came out, Deadly Premonition, that's basically completely inspired by Twin Peaks.
Completely inspired by Twin Peaks. Like, you would be surprised if you did some digging, like how far reaching of an influence this had on pop culture as a whole, even on things that you wouldn't even like expect.
Yeah, definitely. I remember, I think one of my first exposures to it, like really strong exposures to it before I even watched it, was the show Psych. And they did a whole episode where they went to like the town from Twin Peaks and like a bunch of the actors were in it, and oh, it was great. Like, I need to revisit that episode of Psych just because I hadn't seen Twin Peaks when I watched it.
Oh, that's disappointing. I googled Twin Peaks and the first thing that came up was like this restaurant, Twin Peaks Sports Bar, but they're talking about boobs. It has nothing. It's not a Twin Peaks themed restaurant, sadly enough.
Why can't it be both?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I can't be both. That's the first time I clicked on something that said, "Oh, boobs." Yeah, but it's amazing. Watch it. Just all of it. Even season 3. Just watch it. Like, it'll be a mind fuck. You might, like, come out of it going, what the fuck was that? But it will be an experience.
Yes. Alright, so what do we have next?
Dexter. Dexter? Ah, yes.
A lot to talk about here.
Yes, I have a love-hate relationship with the show.
In that you love the first 4 seasons?
Yes, and then hate the rest. Yes, exactly. So let's get the premise out of the way. Dexter is a series about a serial killer, played by Michael C. Hall, who works as a forensic analyst for the Miami police department. And basically, he only kills other serial killers. So, like, his whole deal was, like, he was orphaned and he was taken in by this cop at the Miami Police Department, Harry, who basically, like, discovered his serial killer tendencies when he was, like, a teenager. And instead of, like, taking him to a psychiatrist or some shit, he just decided that he was going to direct his tendencies towards killers and kind of give him this, like, moral code. Where he basically said, oh, it's okay to kill people if they're bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the show. It's a serial killer killing serial killers.
Yes, yes. So so basically that's the show. That's he goes by like this code where like he only kills other serial killers. And there are surprisingly a lot of serial killers in Miami.
I don't think that's that surprising.
Yeah, that's true.
Remember what state Miami's in.
True. But there's some really good stuff. Like season one's probably the best season because
some people would argue season 4, but I'm with you. Season 1 is the best.
Yeah, season one's the best because season one has Dexter trying to hunt down the ice truck killer.
The ice truck killer, yeah.
And
season one's so personal. That's what made it so good.
Yeah, because it turns out the ice truck killer is like Dexter's brother.
Yes.
It's so personal because once Dexter finds that out, then he has to like reconcile like, well, this is a member of my family, but you know, he's bad. He's not living by the code. So, you know, so I'm going to have to kill him.
Yeah, it's such a good season. That story arc is so good, and season 2 and 3 suffered because they weren't able to live up to that. They were still good, but they just weren't able to live up to how good that first season was.
Yeah, season 2 like focused on like they bring in like the FBI because they're like trying to like because like some bodies that Dexter had dumped had turned up, and so they start investigating.
Some divers ended up finding him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started investigating like these people like Dexter killed. And so season 2 is mostly about like Dexter trying to like worm his way out of that while like dealing with this woman, Lila, I think, who turns out to be like, you know, she's trying to get one over on Dexter. For her own ends, like...
Yeah, she's like a serial arsonist.
Yeah, she's like a serial arsonist. And then he ends up, like, killing her while, like, evading suspicion for, like, the murders he committed. It wasn't as strong as season 1.
And season 3 had some interesting bits, but, I mean, what really made Dexter hold up was season 4.
Season 4 was amazing because they brought on John Lithgow as like the serial killer who is like the definition of like this normal family man. And it was so great because Dexter takes on this identity and he kind of like ingratiates himself with like this guy's family and stuff as and then it becomes like this cat and mouse game of like they start stalking each other. Like he figures out who Dexter is.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start stalking each other, and then it becomes like this cat and mouse game of who's gonna get who first. You know, Dexter eventually does get to John Lithgow. He does kill him, but there's like this. It ends in like a heart crushing like ending because after he kills John Lithgow, he goes home and he finds out John Lithgow killed his wife.
Yeah,
who he had developed like a genuine relationship with. Like they start the series as like she was like kind of like his beard.
Well, she had suffered like rape basically from her ex-husband, and the father of her children had raped her and been abusive to her, and because of that she was like she didn't want to be physical.
Yeah, and Dexter liked that.
And that worked for Dexter because he wasn't interested in physical intimacy because he didn't understand it that well because of his being a sociopath.
Originally, like, he was in that relationship with her because she was his beard because he needed to appear, like, normal. And so he had to appear like he could have, like, normal relationships and not come off as, like, this weird loner, you know? He did, like, that's what he was trying to do, like, not come across as, like, a loner. And then eventually he developed a genuine, like, attachment to her, you know? So by the end of season 4, like, they had a good relationship, you know? And Dexter was actually like happy with like the direction his life was going. Like he has like an epiphany, I think, at some point in season 4 where he's like, holy shit, I love this woman. And then so that makes like that ending like so crushing when it happens.
Yeah, that it was a good like gut punch.
Yeah.
To an end, and it probably should have been the end of the series.
It should have been the end of the series
because when after that was just straight downhill.
After that, it was like some shit about Colin Hanks being like a religious serial killer and had nothing.
Oh god, that was like the worst. Like trying to like rip off Fight Club and then say they did it first, or something, you know, like act like they were clever.
Right, exactly. It was so stupid.
Like it was like the twist that everybody saw coming like 10 miles away.
Yeah. It was bad. It just got
I
worse.
remember watching the episode where they revealed that to the audience that like Colin Hanks' character was like had like the other character, like Edward James Olmos was in it too. Like his character was a delusion of Colin Hanks' character.
Yes.
And after the episode aired where they revealed that, which like everybody knew, like within the first 10 minutes of the first episode of the season,
right? It was pretty obvious.
People had figured that out, you know.
It was not a surprise when the reveal.
But afterwards, they like said like, you know, at the end of that episode where they revealed it, they said like, you know, stay tuned for a special interview with Colin Hanks and whatever, and they did this whole thing where they were interviewing the creators of the writers on the show and Colin Hanks and Edward James Olmos, and they were talking to all of them about how like basically patting themselves on the back about how brilliant their little trick was, and it was like, dude, it wasn't brilliant. Everybody saw it coming like weeks in advance.
Yeah, it wasn't like that brilliant. It's been done and been done better.
Yes. But yeah, Dexter it went downhill on like with a pair of roller skates. And then like in the last 2 seasons or so, they just strapped rockets to those roller skates.
I didn't even watch last season. I watched up to like some point where Dexter's like adopted sister, Deb, starts like falling in love with him. And I thought, well, this is just stupid.
Yeah.
Why am I still watching this? I don't know.
Yeah. When you got to the last seasons, the showrunner was Scott Buck.
Yeah, Scott.
So that should tell you right there.
Yeah, that should tell you. I think that was like my first taste of Scott Buck, and I didn't like it. And then he did Marvel shows, and they were the worst.
Yeah, he pretty much killed the Netflix MCU.
Yes, he did. Iron Fist chased everybody away. Like,
yeah.
They're like, I don't want watching this shit anymore.
Pretty much. So yeah, that's Dexter at number 3. So now at number 2, we have Mindhunter, which is the show that kind of inspired this list in the first place.
It's
because
the one I'm currently watching.
Yeah, we discussed season 1 last week. We're discussing season 2 next week.
Yeah, so we not much to say about this since, you know, last week was an entire discussion and next week's gonna be an entire discussion. Just to say that this is a great show. I watched the first episode of season 2 today. I'm gonna power through it, and can I say like season 2 already seems to have started off like even stronger than season 1, if that's possible. This is gonna be great. I know it is. But yeah, it's go ahead. This is you. So
I was gonna say like Mindhunter. The first season in particular with the stuff with Ed Kemper was amazing. I mean, this is David Fincher, directed like 4 of the episodes in season 1.
You can tell.
And you can tell, you can really tell, especially when Kemper's on screen, cause they do so much. I mean, the actor who plays him is like 6'5", but Kemper's supposed to be like 6'9". But even beyond just like making him physically look that big, it like everything they did with like the sound design to just make like his footsteps heavy and lumbering, to make like when he sits down on things to make him like creak, and just everything they did with that sound to just make him like massive and intimidating is impressive.
Also, what's more impressive is just how the actors that they get perfectly encapsulate these serial killers, perfectly like seem to like emulate these serial killers, like to bring them to life.
Yes.
It's scary. It's like wow. Like if you can look at pictures of Ed Kemper and look at pictures of the actor in Mindhunter and say, yeah, they look similar, which is that's
there's like video clips of the real Ed Kemper being interviewed that you can compare.
If you listen to a real Ed Kemper talk and then you listen to the actor talk, like that's where like the magic happens, because like the actors, they got like they're so good at like imitating like the way they speak, the cadence of their voice, you know, like everything about it, like just nailed it.
Yeah, they did so much to like really kind of draw attention to that and really kind of bring you into that moment. And it's terrifying at times. Like I said, whenever Kemper's on screen, it's pretty scary. And the funny thing is he's usually like a very friendly, sociable person when he's on screen, but that just makes it even more terrifying.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Because he's just a scary fucking dude, you know?
Well, it's scary because like, you know what he's capable of.
Yes. And again, like, it's not just what he's capable of, but they go to great lengths to, like, establish how massive he is. And it's just intimidating, and they do such a good job with it. It's so much about the show is just so masterfully done, and I think a lot of that owes credit to David Fincher.
Absolutely.
Kind of establishing the tone and style of that series with the first couple episodes and stuff. Yeah, that's Mindhunter. You can listen to our discussion of season 1. That was last week's episode, and you can look out for our discussion of season 2, which will be next week.
And number 1, we have, and could it be anything else?
No, it could not.
It's Hannibal. And number 1.
Hannibal, the series that somehow so eclipsed the movie franchise that, was so lauded before.
What can I say? Brian Fuller's a genius. Mads Mikkelsen is a genius.
Oh, yeah. He just epitomized Lecter in a way that was even able to overshadow Anthony Hopkins' take on the role.
I wasn't, it's funny because I wasn't expecting anything of the show going in. In fact, I kind of they're making a Silence of the Lambs TV show. What do you freaking do? That was my initial, when I heard about it, I was like, all right. I guess I'll give this a chance. And then I did. I'm like, whoa, okay. That was something.
Just everything about the show, the way it was shot, the use of textures in every scene. You look at just the cloth fabrics, the wallpapers, everything is so heavily textured in this brilliant way, and the darks, whenever you see the blacks in the show, they're inky, it's like oil paint, It's thick and it's oppressive, and the way everything's kind of shot in this kind of surrealistic, metaphorical way, where you're seeing kind of these short delusions within scenes of men that are like black stags, and just crazy stuff, just everywhere, and the crazy murder tableaus that were just horrifying and gorgeous at the same time. Oh, so good.
Needless to say, these are based off of this isn't so much an adaptation of the films as it's a new adaptation of the Thomas Harris novels, with the first season, and I think half of season 2.
Oh no, it's all the way up to the first half of season 3.
Really?
Is all covering material from the first chapter or something of the first book.
Oh, okay, so it is actually, I thought season 1 was a prequel.
Everything that kind of happened in the book, they kind of loosely reference in the first book. And the first book in the series is Red Dragon, which is the last arc of the series.
Yeah, Red Dragon is the last arc of the series. They were eventually gonna try and do Silence of the Lambs and all the others. They didn't get that far because it lasted 3 seasons, because surprisingly this was a show that, like Twin Peaks, this was aired on primetime network television, and similar to Twin Peaks, this was a show that I was surprised it got 3 seasons, because this was way far out there for primetime network television.
I think there are 3 types of people that watched Hannibal.
Yes.
The TV series. There are 3 types of people around it. People who wouldn't give it a shot because it was an NBC take on Silence of the Lambs, and they were like, oh, it's gonna be crap. And so they never gave it a shot.
Sure.
There are people that adore it as one of the greatest shows ever made. And then there are crazy people.
They're crazy people. Define crazy people.
People who didn't take it as one of the greatest TV shows ever made.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But did see it.
People watched
that's
it.
Kind of the 3 types of people that have seen Hannibal, in my opinion. An example is my sister. She doesn't like, stuff that's too dark. It kind of upsets her, and she's just not into it. She doesn't like gore and stuff like that. She loved Hannibal just because of how good it was.
Okay, so she
it was everything about the content of that show was contrary to what she'd want to watch, but she couldn't deny how good it was.
It's funny, it's funny because the show is dark. The show almost revels in the gore.
Oh yeah.
Especially with the murals, it turns, they turn human misery into art. It's
yeah.
Weird. Yeah.
Like I said, it's horrifying and beautiful at the same time.
Right.
And then, oh God, man, you want to know a recipe to make people nauseous and feel ill? is you make cannibalism look delicious.
Yes. Yes.
Oh man, the cooking on that show.
They really go all in on the cooking aspect too. like portraying Hannibal as like a gourmet chef. Like they really go all in on that.
Oh yeah, the presentation of the food, it's immaculate, it's beautiful, everything's like so much effort put into it, but it's people.
Yes, but it's people. I especially like, I think it was season 2, where Hannibal serves Eddie Izzard his leg.
Yeah, serves him his own leg.
Yes, like Eddie Izzard is like another serial killer, and Hannibal has him in his grasp, and Hannibal like serves him like this really nice, like dish, and then like tells him it's his leg.
Well, see, that's the thing, is like, in the original adaptation of Thomas Harris's novels, the, Silence of the Lambs and those ones with Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal. Anthony Hopkins played Hannibal as this, like, super intelligent, like, lizard brain-like serial killer.
Right.
And in this version, Mads Mikkelsen plays Hannibal as the devil himself.
Yeah, he's basically like the devil himself in the interpretation.
Yeah. It's almost supernatural. Like, the level of his intelligence and cunning and just, it's just, like I said, it's almost supernatural.
And also, like, he can be incredibly charming.
Oh, yeah.
Mads Mikkelsen's Hannibal can be incredibly charming. You could be, like, taken in by him very easily.
The best dressed serial killer ever.
Yes. Because you look at him and you think, like, he's a super successful therapist. He's wealthy. He's a man of taste. He has good manners. You don't think that guy's running around killing people.
Yeah, but he is.
Yeah. And I love how it explores the relationship between Hannibal and the FBI agent who eventually catches him, Will, who is like, who has like his own demons, and it's interesting, and like Hannibal spends the first season like, kind of like, drugging him, like fucking up his mind, and then Hannibal develops this intense relationship with him.
Yeah. It's like an unconsummated romantic relationship that drives the relationship between the two characters through the series.
Right. To the point, like, the last shot of the series, not the last shot, but like one of the last scenes, the very last scenes is Hannibal and Will going off of a cliff, holding each other in an embrace.
Yes. It's such a good show.
Yes.
If you haven't seen the show, you need to watch it. If you have misgivings because you're like, oh, it's an NBC take on it, just drop all that shit at the door. This is an amazing show. This is an HBO caliber show easily.
Yeah, it is. Also, I should say the ending to season 2 is fucking brutal.
Oh, yeah. It's probably the best season finale I've ever seen of any show.
Yes, because I've never seen anything like that. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's amazing through and through. It's, oh god, it's such a good series. But yeah, that brings an end to our discussion. As we've mentioned a few times, next week we're going to be talking about Mindhunter Season 2. So that'll be the conclusion of our little Mindhunter sandwich we're having right now. But yeah, so until then, here's what's coming up in the week ahead. We're recording this on Saturday, September 14th, but on Friday, September 13th, Room 104 returned to HBO. Unbelievable debuted on Netflix. Undone came to Amazon Prime. Then this Wednesday, September 18th, we talked about it earlier. Will mentioned it. American Horror Story 1984. That's the one that's kind of based on slasher movies. Comes to FX. Then on Friday, September 20th, Disenchantment returns to Netflix for its second part. We're going to be discussing that soon as well. And Between Two Ferns, the movie, airs on Netflix. Then on Monday, September 23rd, All Rise comes to CBS. Bob Hart's Abishola comes to CBS. Bull to CBS. The Neighborhood to CBS. This is the beginning of the fall season. So lots of network shows. Bluff City Law to NBC. 911 to Fox. Prodigal Son to Fox. Prodigal Son would be might have been in contention for our list if it ends up being any good. And The Good Doctor to ABC. Tuesday, September 24th. FBI, NCIS New Orleans, all to CBS. New Amsterdam, This Is Us, both to NBC. Blackish, Mixedish, which is a prequel spin-off of Blackish. Bless This Mess, The Connors, and Emergence, all on ABC. And Empire and The Resident on Fox. Wednesday, September 5th, it's a night of all the Chicagos on NBC, Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, Chicago PD. It's just Chicago procedural night.
Chicago Cinematic Universe.
Yes, pretty much. Survivor returns on CBS. The Goldbergs, Modern Family, Schooled, Single Parents, and Stumpton on ABC. Is Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Can you believe that's still on?
No, but yeah, that's kind of crazy. I didn't think like that would still be a thing. It's hilarious, though.
That's on FXX. Crank Yankers returns on Comedy Central.
What the hell? Like, that
show's been gone for like over a decade.
Yeah, that's something I never thought would get a reboot. That's weird. Okay.
That was originally like Jimmy Kimmel was heavily involved in that, I remember.
Yeah, that was like Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla, I think, when they were doing the Man Show at the same time.
Yeah, and a lot of their kind of comedy friends involved, and it was prank calls with like reenacted with like puppets.
Yeah, it was just like they were puppets, like just like it was just comedians like prank calling people and then recording it and then reenacting them with puppets or some shit.
Yeah, and then South Park returns on Comedy Central, which I'm always looking forward to whenever South Park comes back.
Yeah. Can you believe that's still on?
I can, just because that show is it's somehow remained relevant.
Right.
I don't think any show has been able to stay as successfully relevant as South Park. It's kind of crazy. But Thursday, September 26th, Carol's second act, Evil, Mom, and the Unicorn, and Young Sheldon, your favorite, all return on CBS. Then on NBC, Law & Order, Special Victims Unit, Sunnyside, Perfect Harmony, Superstore, and The Good Place.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about The Good Place.
The Good Place is one of our main shows we discuss week to week, so when The Good Place comes back, we're going to be talking about that week to week. Grey's Anatomy, How to Get Away with Murder, and A Million Little Things all return on ABC. Can you believe Grey's Anatomy's still on? That debuted the same year as Lost.
Really? Damn it.
Yeah.
Wow. Jesus.
That was like, ABC had a good year. They had Grey's Anatomy, which was a huge hit, Lost, which was a phenomenon, and Desperate Housewives all debuted the same year.
That was a good year for ABC, you're right.
Yeah. And then Creepshow is on Shudder on that day as well. And then lastly, on Friday, September 27th, Blue Bloods, Hawaii Five-0, and Magnum P.I. all back to CBS. That's their night of 80s nostalgia, redone in the modern age, and then American Housewife, Fresh Off the Boat, both back on ABC. Van Helsing, back on Sci-Fi. Transparent has a special that it's ending its series because, we all know that there was a issue with the main star of that show. So they're doing a musical like special or something on Amazon. And then Netflix has The Politician, which is their first of their Ryan Murphy shows. Netflix did this thing in the last couple of years where they've been like recruiting huge like showrunners, like named showrunners.
Yeah, they're trying
Ryan Murphy, Shonda Rhimes, people like that they've recruited, and this is the first like fruit of that endeavor, basically. The Politician. So that's it. Next week, Mindhunter Season 2. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, The Total Screen. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you, everybody, for listening.